We are live, Your Worship.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this regular council meeting of June 25th, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda, and I'd like to amend the agenda to be adopted to include item 12B, Chamber of Commerce request for letter of support, the East Kootenay Immigration Pilot Program. So someone want to make that motion for me? Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor Lucien. All in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 11th, 2024. And someone want to do that? Councilor Devlin, seconded by Councilor Lucien. All in favor? Motion's carried. And adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting of June 13th, 2024. Councilor Cherry, Councilor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from the regular council meeting minutes of June 11th? Being none, moving on to the special council minutes of June 13th. Again, saying none, I am going on to item 5A. Does someone want to put this motion on the table for me, please? Councilor Lucien.
I move that the 2023 annual report be approved.
Seconder for the motion, Councilor Cherry. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none.
I just want to let you guys know we've only received one comment, and it was a concern regarding the evacuation plan from the south side of the city should something emergency like happen. So that inquiry has been forwarded to the fire chief and the director of engineering and public works.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, all in favor? Approved, thank you. Moving on to announcements from the mayor. We have Canada Day coming up, and there is a parade and festivities in the park. And so I know that the fire chief's looking for any floats. If anyone wants to put in floats, just to let the public know. I think that they can apply to the fire chief to put floats in. All right, we are going to now move on to bylaws. Number 9A, zoning amendment bylaw 2386. Ms. Hartling, do you have a presentation that you would like, or any comments at this point?
Yeah, I do have some comments for council. There's no formal presentation. So this application that you have in front of you today is a rezoning request to rezone the property. It's located at 511 Cedar Street. The request is rezoned from the rural residential 2 hectare zone. So it has a minimum parcel size restriction of 2 hectares in order to subdivide. And the applicant is requesting to rezone to the standard single 2-family residential R2 zone in order to be able to proceed with the subdivision application that they do have. They have applied for, and staff are drafting a preliminary layout review with conditions within that. And one of the conditions is that they do not meet the minimum lot size to be able to do 3 lots. So they have applied for this rezoning. The recommendation from staff is that the bylaw be read a first time, second, third time, and be adopted, as the proposal is in line with the Fish Community Plan housing policies, the low density residential land use designation, and with the neighborhood policies. The property does have steep slopes, and there is a creek that runs on the southeast corner of it. So the applicant does have to update a geotechnical report, an environmental report with the subject subdivision. However, all the feasibility of access, servicing would all be with the subdivision. And what we're looking at today is if the R2 zoning that allows single family dwelling or 2-family dwelling units and a smaller lot size is appropriate for this neighborhood.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hartling. Someone want to put the first motion on the table for me? Councilor Cherry.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2386 be read first time.
Seconder for that motion, Councilor Palmer. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I just have a question to the mayor. So the Advisory Planning Commission concerns with the proposed site design configuration with a minimum lot width of 15 meters due to existing topographical constraints. Just wondering if staff have any comments on that?
Ms. Hartling, do you have a comment?
Yeah, through the chair, or through your worship, the 15 meters is the minimum lot width permitted in the zone, so it does not require variance for the minimum width. And then due to the topographical constraints, that would all be through a geotechnical professional reliance review. So with the subdivision, they would have to prove out grading, servicing, the geotechnical slopes, and then also the creek in the south east corner there. So staff do not feel that there's any concerns with the new zone over the property. However, some of the comments from the APC were more geared towards the subject subdivision, which is the approving officer that reviews that.
Okay, thank you. Council Plum.
And then, assuming that this is passed, this bylaws are passed, at that point, that decision to subdivide to the 15 meters would be a routine matter, could reasonably be denied, I believe.
Yeah, through your worship, doesn't mean that 3 lots would be approved. That's what's been applied for, and the 3 lots, if this property is rezoned, the minimum width requirement is 15 meters. They would meet the minimum lot size requirement. Their lots proposed are between 2,500 square meters and 1,500 square meters. So they would meet all the zoning provisions if they were in the R2 zone. However, the approving officer does not have to approve the subdivision if it shows that there's any safety issues, and then negative impact on the neighbors due to grading or fill. So that would all be addressed at subdivision, and then they may need to amend and revise their subdivision plans accordingly.
Follow up, Council.
No, that's good, thanks.
Any other comments from Council? I'll call a question on the first reading. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Number 2, please. Council Chair,
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2386 be read a second and a third time.
second for the motion, please. Council Palmer. Any discussion on this motion? Council Palmer?
Yeah, just a couple comments, Mayor Souls. I really don't, myself, I don't have any problems with this going ahead. It continues to disturb me that we have been prohibited by the province to hold public hearings. So what we're doing is, this is in alignment with our official community plan. It should be a fairly routine thing, and maybe is. However, the problem is that we are not giving the community a real opportunity for input on that. And there's a fundamental problem with that. And so I'm a little bit torn. I'll be voting in favor of the second and third time. I'm not sure about the adoption. And it would be more out of principle rather than necessary material. But the thing is, I don't know if there's something material. And if we went out to the public with this, we might hear something otherwise and say, okay, is this appropriate or not? So those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay. Councilor Stegner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Palmer. I understand and I share your concerns in regards to public consultation, and I probably would have said it, not voted in favor of it had it not been for the public consultation and the phrase where it says that the applicant has posted a public notice sign in accordance with section 4.2 of the development approval procedure bylaw number 2356. So while I don't think we're doing our best as a community of engaging with the public and getting their feedback on the applicant, it's the tools that we have at our disposal at this moment. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Great. Councilor Chair.
Thanks, so just for the sake of healthy debate, I just want to remind everybody that we have done an OCP that was the public's opportunity to comment on stuff like this. And then just a question through the chair, through the staff, under the new zoning bylaw that we hope to have approved this fall, would this application even come forward to council? Or would it already have been just approved
Ms. Whitman, comment?
Through your worship, because council hasn't seen, I mean, you've seen it on Talk Revelstoke, but it's not formally in front of council. Some of the provisions in that draft bylaw coming forward to you after hearing feedback from the community may change. But if this property was under the RLD1 or the rural residential zone that we're proposing, there may need to be a variance. Because the RLD1, the minimum lot size is 400 square meters that we're proposing. It's quite a small parcel with a maximum of 1,000. So they would actually have to vary to be able to have larger parcels.
So it'd actually be bigger than,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Item number 3, please, someone will put that on for me, Councillor Cherry.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2386 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, please, Councillor Lucille. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, just to follow up, I've already explained some of the principal problems
Right.
here. Ideally, I'd like to see a little bit of a pause on here, but I'm not gonna push the point because I don't think it's gonna be helpful at this point. So I'm just making a comment that I'll vote in favor of this, but not 100% happy about it.
Ms. Hartman.
Just for an update to council with the legislative changes from the province. So there's a new provision. So what council is used to is if the zoning bylaw amendment is in line with OCP, a public hearing is not required. However, if it's in line with OCP and it meets the residential standards for housing, it must not be held. So we are restricted fully.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for that clarification. All right.
Even
Any other comments from council? All those in favor? Motion's carried, thank you. Moving on to 11A, staff reports, annual operating agreement for BC Transit. Engineering, whose file is this? Ms. Milliken, is this yours? Or Ms. Hogan? Oh, sorry, Ms. Moore?
Through the chair, I can speak to it
Good.
quickly on behalf of Director Black. So this is our annual operating agreement with BC Transit. They were unable to procure funding for additional capital assets and buses. So we are continuing with the hybrid system that we had this last year. And we will apply for more buses in following years to make it a full consolidated system.
So it will carry on as it has been.
Correct.
Correct. Someone want to put the motion on the table for me, please? Councilor Dillon.
Move that the annual operating agreement with BC Transit to cost share the provision of transit services in the community for 2024 to 2025 be approved, and that the chief administrative officer and the mayor be authorized to sign the AOA for 2024 to 2025.
Seconder for the motion, please, Councilor Cherry. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Orlando, Councilor Palmer.
Your worship, yeah, I have a question for staff, if I may, through the chair. I'm on a bit of a back foot. I went because some of the linked attachments were not included earlier. I was just trying to review them pretty quickly. One of the concerns that was expressed to me when we switched to the new system was availability of accessible buses for those with disabilities, especially over in the Columbia Park neighborhood. What was expressed at the time was that we would be able to deal with that once BC Transit did get new buses that were accessible. And I'm wondering what the implication will be this year. In the past, staff has advised that there are other options, such as the Handy Dart bus, but for some people who do not qualify or it does not meet their frequency, they've expressed concerns to me that that service is not available. And I understand that there's been some workarounds in the meantime, so I'm seeking an update from staff on what the implications are of the change to, or the BC Hydro's unsuccessful request for new buses for this program.
Ms. Moore, can you speak to that at all?
Through the chair, unfortunately, I don't have that level of detail in terms of what Director Black has been communicating back and forth with BC Transit and province regarding more accessible buses. So
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Palmer, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor.
I'll let Councillor Lander go first.
Okay, Councillor Lando, follow up.
Yeah, your worship, due to sort of the information not being available and some of the reports that were provided just prior to the meeting were older reports. It's led to a bit of haziness for me. I would like to, I don't know if it needs to be done through formal resolution or if it can be done formally, request that when staff are available to provide an update for residents who have been impacted by the unavailability of accessible buses, that they provide a report to council on a practical communication and update to residents about what is happening and when they can expect to have that service they had before returned.
Great, we can get that report. Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, just a little bit concerned and confused because this came across to me as sort of a routine annual operating agreement, but now I'm hearing, I'm a bit surprised. And so maybe I've missed something somewhere along the line that we're not proceeding with the advanced system. And my memory of it was that it was kind of a rubber stamp process. So layered with Councillor Lando's concerns and not having staff here to explain it, because not reviewing the report, these things aren't clear. And I think we need more information before concurring with this. So further to Councillor Lando's comments, I'm wondering if this motion should be deferred until the engineer is back and more detailed information.
If you want to make that motion, you can do that and discussion will stop, but we can defer that.
I'm willing to do that, but I'm just sort of curious where other councillors on them. Okay, yeah, I'm getting kind of.
I don't, sorry if I can.
Yeah.
I don't see it changing what's in front of us. The money's not there and we don't have any funding for buses, or the buses are available or haven't been built. I don't see there being another option other than continuing how we operated last year.
Through the chair, so that may very well be true, and likely is. However, not having information to make good decisions here, because I'll put that motion to defer until staff can give a more complete detail on the information provided.
Seconder on deferral, please. Councillor Stephenhurst. Okay, we'll defer it to our next council meeting.
Okay.
Yep. Okay with that, councillors? Councillor Lana, you'd like to, can't really speak to it because we're deferring, is that correct? Right.
Need to vote on the deferral.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried, thank you. All right, going on to item 11B, the Sophie statement. Someone want to put that on the table for me, please? Councillor Cherry.
Move that the 2023 Statement of Financial Information be approved and that Mayor and Deputy Director of Finance be authorized to execute the same on behalf of the city.
Second for the motion, please. Councillor Lucille. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Moore, do you have any comment, or Mr. Weatherall?
No, just the report's been provided to council, and I'm happy to speak to any things if you have any questions.
Okay.
Information contained.
Any questions, council? Councillor Plum?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, or my routine comment on the Sophie reports regarding staff. I continue to disagree that that should be on that, but we're required by provincial law.
Right.
I think it's quite frankly in contradiction to the privacy legislation, and maybe someday I'll take my rhetoric and try and challenge it at a little bit higher level. Notwithstanding that statement, Mayor Souls, the other concern that a citizen has raised to me is on the overall expenses. And one of the trends that I've seen over the past few years is that there's out of province travel that's happening more regularly, or in province without any, that's kind of ad hoc and not necessarily in tune with the budget, although you can always find ways to shoehorn that in, it seems. And so it's just, I'm just flagging it and I'm wondering in the future if we may need to consider some policy that's pretty common in other communities regarding travel. And that's both with employees and council. So that's my comments.
All
Thanks.
right, thank you for that. Any other Mr. Weatherly, you want to speak to
Through
it?
the chair, I just wanted to address the comment. At GFOA BC this year, it was actually a question posed to the province about disclosure of remuneration over 75,000. And if the province had any desire to change that level, that threshold. And at this time, there's no real interest in the province to change that threshold. So just to kind of give you a comment track from the province, which I think like with inflation and stuff and yeah, wages obviously increasing. Like pretty soon we're gonna have basically all of city staff on the report, which is kind of counterintuitive to the point of the report. So I agree with your comment, I think.
Okay, that's great. Appreciate that. And that Council Palmer has raised that before in that situation. So
Maybe I'll just speak to that a little bit more because it's certainly always on my mind whenever the Sophie reports. But going back a couple decades ago, I remember when the threshold changed from 60,000 to 75,000. At that time, it was targeting essentially the chief administrative officer, or the officers that were making, and that was a lot of money back then. So that was the intent when that legislation came in, is at the executive level, the problem is, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to most people. You start listing people's wages, list the wages of people at Save on Foods or whatever, there'll be an uproar.
Right.
And so I just think it's inappropriate. We aren't allowed to discuss individual issues about individuals within the organization, and that's the problem. So I think it might be a resolution in the future, and I think most of my colleagues that I've talked about that tend to agree that it's inappropriate. Anyway, that's enough on that. Thanks.
good. Any other comments on the Sophie statement? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 11C, ICE allocation policy amendment. Ms. Donato, do you have a presentation or any comments that you'd like to make before I put this motion on to?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I'll just provide a bit of background information as to why this memo is in front of council. So for those that are familiar, BC Hockey recently reclassified all three of its junior B teams to a new junior A system. So any of the junior B teams looking to move into the junior A level will have to meet certain requirements that are set for junior A level teams. This includes primary tenant status and the terms of the agreement. And part of the assessment requires that they have priority in terms of ICE allocation. So that required an amendment to our ICE allocation policy. And that is why you have this before you today.
Great, thank you. Someone want to put the motion on the table for me, please, Councilor Lucia.
I move that the ICE allocation policy dated June 25th, 2024 be approved as amended.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Devlin, any further discussion or questions from Ms. Donato? Councilor Orlando.
Your Worship, thank you through the chair. What is going to be the impact on other ICE users? What is the practical impact of the policy change going to be? I note that when I review the actual policy itself, there's not much change at all to the policy except for prioritizing the primary user status. And the second part of that question is, have other ICE users been consulted so far on that change?
Ms. Donato, do you have comment?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. The way we do the scheduling right now, there's no impact to the users. The Grizzlies occupy the ice at 11 o'clock during the daytime hours. So they don't impact any of the evening users, and I've been informed that that trend will continue. The understanding with the booking system at the arena is we already prioritize the junior level games during playoff times and minor hockey games. So there's already a system in place, and it's consistent with it's consistent with the way the ice allocation policy is written. I have not consulted the other arena ice user groups with this policy change. I didn't have a lot of notice about it, and I wanted to ensure that we had some documentation before the assessment took place for the junior level team, which was happening sometime this month. And I wasn't aware of the date, so no consultation has happened. But having said that, I don't anticipate any impact. I can probably guess that a few of the groups will be concerned by this policy change, thinking there might be some threat to their ice time. But as I've mentioned, there's no desire to change the current ice allocation from the junior team.
Paul?
Your worship, yeah, thank you. And in the future, so I'm trying to understand the practical implications for this. So in the future, if there was a change that impacted other users and they have not been consulted on this, who retains the final decision on that? Is this going to be the Parks Rec and Culture and and ultimately all of the users, or does this setting priority allocate that decision over to the junior A system?
Mr. Neto?
Through your worship, in accordance with the ice allocation policy, the final decision rests with, I believe it's me.
Right. Any other comments?
Your worship, just a comment, yeah. I appreciate that staff is working to try to meet a deadline, but I think when we make changes like this, it's best to address the questions and concerns of the user groups prior to doing that. I don't know what they might ask at this point, so I'm not going to be supporting at this point just for.
All right, thank you for your comment. Any other comments from council, Councilor Cherry?
Thanks, Marcels. Through the chair to Mr. Nada, can you just give us a quick briefing on how ice time is allocated in playoff hockey right now, if it's in contradiction to other user groups? Since from what I read in this report, it's going to be the exact same.
Yes, your worship. So specifically for playoff games?
Yes.
So.
Because we'll call those unscheduled.
Yeah, unscheduled playoff games usually happen in the evenings in the winter months. And typically it will impact a Friday night, which is the adult leagues. Friday night, Saturday night, the odd occasion. As we move into March, you might see the playoff games happen during the week. And typically the impact is to the adult users and to minor hockey. And what we try to do is find them additional ice time somewhere else. A lot of times the minor hockey groups actually host tournaments during the day so that their participants can attend the Grizzly games in the evenings. So it provides more of a entertainment. The way we do the ice allocation right now, we have an ice users meeting in June where all of the ice users attend. We hash out any conflicts. We start off with the base schedule, which is the schedule from the prior year, and we work off of that schedule. And what you find is groups come to the table requesting more ice time. They end up swapping additional ice time during different days. For the most part, they work together to make it all work out, and I think each group understands the other's need. That's one of the reasons why the Grizzly practice time is scheduled at 11 o'clock during the daytime hours when the ice isn't being utilized by any other user. And it has been that way for a number of years. I don't anticipate it changing, but it's one of those things that we can't really control.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Any other comments? Do you have a follow-up, Councilor?
If I could just follow up, I just wanted to thank you for that information. I think it clarifies a lot that, this new policy coming forward isn't actually going to show much of any change. And that you've done a pretty great job in balancing every user's needs in the community. So thank you.
Okay. One last time, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Note that Councillor Orlando is opposed, balance of council is in favor, this motion passes. Moving on to item 12A, correspondence. We received a letter from the Illicilla Greenbelt Society, request for land and equipment, storage place for them to build. And so at this point in time, is there any comments from council? I would like to actually have feedback from staff before I make comment on this.
I mean,
Councillor Cherry, then Councillor Palmer.
thanks for Mayor Sauce. Yeah, it's pretty briefly outlined. They're just looking for an enclosed facility that they can keep their equipment in. There was a couple of cold start days where they couldn't get the equipment running. Then there is a fear of vandalism and maintenance issues. So they're just hoping for a space. Currently, they have a space, but it's not enclosed. It's just enough to keep the snow load off. It's they've outgrown it.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. My first comment is that the Illicilla Greenbelt Society has done amazing work for many, many years and provided great community service with little or no cost to the taxpayer. And so I just would like to recognize and thank them for that. In this letter, yes, they're looking for a spot, but really their specific request is to meet with us at an upcoming council meeting. You know, I have questions as well. They're saying that from engineering public works that it isn't feasible. Of course, we don't have the director here today to talk to that. But I would like to put a motion on the table that the Illicilla Greenbelt Society be invited to attend the next regular meeting to discuss their requests further.
Okay, seconder for that motion.
Can we friendly amendment, Your Worship?
Haven't even got a seconder yet.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Discuss it with councillor.
Just with working hours, they may not be coming to the next meeting. How about just a future meeting?
Sure. At a future meeting. rather.
At a future meeting? All right,
Yeah.
do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lucille? Any discussion on that? Councillor Lucille, then Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Marshals. Yeah, no, I think it would be great to have them in to talk in front of council. It doesn't outline in this letter, but I feel their storage place inside the pump house down in the mill.
Close. I can show you on the map. I don't know.
Yeah. Just with our last council meeting restricting public access to that space, we do need to address that because that makes it another layer.
It's untenable. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be great to have them in front of council so we can discuss this with them further.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Owen.
Your worship, just for clarity, a question for the chair. This is a motion to have them come to a meeting to talk about the request, but not for staff or report in the meantime. Is that correct?
The motion didn't mention anything
Okay.
about a report. So just in comment to that, Councillor Orlando, when the director's back, I would like to actually ask for a report regarding that and have that director weigh in. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, just further on that, it doesn't specify a staff report, but when the staff sees the motion, I think it would be appropriate for them to be prepared for that discussion. Thanks.
Any other comments from council? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Chamber of Commerce requests. Ms. Floyd is just giving you a letter from the chamber. And so do I have Kat, are you here? Yes, you are. Would you mind coming up, please, first? With
okay.
Carolyn? No, Carolyn, you can stay there. You can, if you need something to lean on, you can grab the podium behind you. Otherwise, you can speak there. I'm asking you both to weigh in on this request and just kind of explain what's going on here with this.
Okay, I can start.
Thank you.
So the Chamber of Commerce has been working with other communities in the East Kootenays to put together an immigration pilot program that we can be part of. And what this is doing is looking at skilled workers, providing them a way to permanent residency. So this would not just do tourism industry, it would hit all the sectors in order to kind of provide a smoother path to getting permanent residency. There's some background on other pilot projects that have happened. And they found that a lot of the residents who apply into these programs are already in the community and they have families. So it's a really good way to keep these community members that are already here in town and filling up these labor shortages that we have, like construction, healthcare, and all these other things. So I think Caroline can speak to it a bit more.
Yeah. Thank you. RECIP is the child of RNIP. So RNIP was a rural northern immigration pilot program that this is a federal program that went to different communities. Originally, it was not available for Revelstoke. Our member of parliament, Rob Morrison, went and wrote a letter in September of 2022 to the federal government requesting that Revelstoke and other parts of the Kootenays would be included in this. It was originally the West Kootenays, Nelson, and those types of areas, as things usually tend to be. And Revelstoke finds itself in an interesting sphere that sometimes we are either in the Kootenays or we're in the Thompson Okanagan and back and forth. And so now the Rural Canadian Immigration Program is a program that was released in March of 2024. From the federal government. At the time, there was no application that was released, so no one knew what that was going to look like. And then this was, the application was released in May of 2024 with a deadline of July 2nd. And it included the opportunity for rural communities to participate in this. So you could be by yourself, or you could find some friends and join sort of a coalition. The language for rural communities is under 200,000 people. Oh, yes, take that in. And now it's expanded all over British Columbia. So of course, you know, Kamloops, Kelowna, I know the South Okanagan is forming, Penticton, Oliver, Osoyoos, they're all creating these spaces in there, and it's not endless. There's 10 to 15 spots. And so what we have done is we've bandwagoned or put ourselves together with Fernie, Kimberly, Golden, Cranbrook, Columbia Valley, including Invermere. I think I'm missing another one in there. And we have looked at how the West Kootenays have put this together, what their budget was annually. And we've come up with a budget of about $150,000 annually. This will fund 1.5 people who will be the point person for anyone who is looking to get their permanent residency through this program. It would be called, like it's mentioned, the East Kootenays Immigration Pilot Program. Revelstoke is looking at contributing about $30,000 of that. Of course, every community can't contribute the same thing, as the deadlines for this have been very quick. I did just hear an hour ago that the deadline has been extended to July 16th, which is actually really great because it's Canada Day coming up. So this is going to help us to make an application that's really well done. East Kootenays Community Futures is going to be putting the application. They are helping with capacity in terms of volunteering. And so, like Kat mentioned, it's a little bit of a shift. So previously RNIP, so the Northern Immigration Program, would not allow fast food workers. They were really focusing on healthcare, which is fantastic, but now that is going to be set by the working group. So for us, this is our Revelstoke and the 6 other communities that we're working with. We get to set what our focus target market is for what we would like to bring to town, which is great because I think we have 4 resort municipalities in there, very common program together. Do you have any questions before I think you have a lot of the information. So we're requesting a letter of support from specifically the mayor is what they have requested, so council and the mayor, and also funding through potentially the EOF funding for a minimum of $20,000 a year for 5 years.
And my understanding is that we may have secured that in principle. Is that correct?
Yes. So I had a conversation with Evan Parliament at 7:48 a.m. this morning, and it sounds like our representative Michael Brooks is CSRD Area B And everyone is on board to support this. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Mayor Sauls. Series of questions. How is this different from, through the chair? How is this different from the LMIA program?
The LMIA, through the chair, sorry. Through the chair, the LMIA program is a temporary foreign worker program. The LMIA is when you bring in temporary foreign workers to the country, unless you're in agriculture, you have to go through, well, you still have to do an LMIA program through agriculture, but it's like 2 loops and you're done. It's quite easy. And it's for seasonal workers. It's not for permanent residency.
So you can bridge, if I can.
You can bridge.
You can bridge it into
yes.
a PR status over 2 years at an extra
yeah, you
accelerated cost.
You for sure can, but you still have to go through the PR program. And so this is a program that the federal government has put together that makes the PR process faster and easier.
And if I can.
Go ahead.
Follow up and then Councilor Plum.
What is the cost, if I can, to the chair,
Yeah.
what is the cost per application for, or per worker under this program versus, you know, for example, if I did the LMIA program for a business, it'd be about $1,000. And if I hired a consultant, it'd be about $4 to $5 grand for foreign
Ooh, through the chair. That I have a lot of background in LMIAs and temporary foreign workers program from managing wineries, and the cost per worker highly depends on the industry. So per worker in the wine industry, for an exact example, so agriculture, we were looking at $1,000 to about $1,300. You need to secure housing for every single one of those people that's coming through to the country. So this is another huge hurdle for the LMIA process when you're outside of the agricultural realm. So you're looking at tourism or different spaces like that. Also, Minister Boissonnault, who was previously the federal minister of tourism, and he's moved over to, and he's still involved, but moved over to something else, which I can't recall right now. But he has mentioned recently that the federal government wants to increase the processes for the LMIA process. So they want to make it harder because they don't believe that there is as big of a worker shortage as there previously was based on their quarterly numbers. What we're looking at here is the process to be able to, like Kat mentioned, the focus being on people who are already in Canada or who are coming through Canada in different ways, but definitely keeping them in the permanent residency aspect. At the Chamber of Commerce, we work with different companies that do recruitment for temporary foreign workers and permanent residents. We're actually releasing that in the next couple of weeks, so that's actually top secret, but not anymore. And then so one of the companies that we work with, we actually brought Layla Rundle into Revelstoke, who is our visitor experience manager at the Chamber, and we helped her get her permanent residency. We've also watched multiple incredibly important people who are assets to this community, such as Lydia Symes, who is the media person at Tourism Revelstoke, go through and jump massive hoops to get their permanent residency. So if we can help that process in Revelstoke with that additional help, it'll go quite far. I heard from the general manager of McDonald's, one of our chamber members, that he was kind of dumbfounded and hit through for a loop when he found out that the RNIP is now turned into the RCIP, and that there's no funding from the federal government because they've been able to keep so many of their workers through that program through the Vernon office that was previously with RNIP.
So
I don't have the answer to your question because because we don't have the answers from the government on exactly what they want this to look like. Because they've said it'll look like what you want it to look like once you get approved, but it's kind of
sounds like the provincial government.
It's federal.
Oh, don't have experience working with them, but it would have been great to have a number as compared.
Agreed, 100% agreed. I think that the $4,000 figure that you mentioned earlier depends on the company that you go for sure. It's a conversation that is it's a circular conversation I'm stuck in. I would love any advice that you have, and I can also add to that I requested from the working group that we have a public webinar in the next couple of weeks. Now that we have this extension to the deadline, we're able to to talk to the public and explain to them with some people from the East Kootenays, like the East Kootenays Community Futures. Revelstoke will host the webinar, and it'll be broadcasted across the 7 communities on what this program looks like and why businesses might want to potentially help with some of the funding aspects to it.
Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls, and thank you to the Chamber for taking some initiative regarding immigration and employment in our community. A couple questions for you, Mayor Souls.
Sure.
What does LMIA stand for?
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Sorry.
thanks, that's okay. And then my second question for you, Mayor Souls. What does RCIP stand for?
Let me tell you, I don't know. And those are
I
the
searched it.
acronyms, so thank you for that.
We'll defer the questions to the Chamber, yeah.
Through the chair, so earlier I mentioned that our CIP is Rural Canadian Immigration Program. Yes, we should put that in there. Good, I see, I feel you. Labor Market Impact Assessment is the LMIA. So the LMIA process for temporary foreign workers is basically a business has to prove that they've actually put out the request for that position in the community and that they don't have sufficient people applying for said position and that it warrants a temporary foreign worker being brought into the country.
So, Mayor Souls, then just a follow-up. So I'm trying to distill this in the reason for the acronyms. It's a problem with governments all the time. And by the way, that you asked a question about federal government, it's about 10 times worse than provincial government. So this program, I'm vaguely familiar with the MLMIA, which I can't remember what it stands for already. And I was confused about the RCIP because we had the RNIP here as well, which was also an RCIP that I'm gathering.
It was Northern
So why C instead of M?
Canadian. It expands the reach.
Okay. So specifically, through the chair, specifically, what will this program do for the individual that's trying to get a job that is in permanent residency in Canada? So what will this particular, the new program, how will this help them get a job? So very
Through the chair.
very tightly on a practical side.
Sorry, through the chair, it's actually communities, rural communities, not Canadian. I also get lost in acronyms, so no judgments.
Okay.
So the way that the West Kootenays ran theirs, and I also have a video that explains how they ran theirs as well, is you have these 1.5 humans who are going to be doing this work, and their job is to be an extension of settlement services. So we also have to have settlement services where we are to be able to run this. We have to have information that we gathered from the housing association society that we have in town. So TAW has provided that as well. And then what these people do is that they have employed, again, there's no information on how the program is supposed to be run, which is always fun, but they're supposed to be helping them jump through the hoops. And so it's a sort of a mentorship collaborative space where they make it a one-stop shop for not only the person who's looking to become a permanent resident, but the business who wants to attract people or their staff to be permanent residents. And then we're talking about internally how that's going to look. Are we going to create a space where businesses can sign up to have permanent residents, PR applicants? A part of this includes marketing and promotion, CRM to track candidates. So this all includes that website where you would be able to say, I want to be a part of this program and what does it look like? And you are triaged based on the needs that the working group decides that you have. So if you're not going to be in the needs that the working group decides should be there, then you would be ineligible for this particular program through the East Kootenays. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have follow-up questions. I guess, Mayor Soul, well, I'll just do the next part because it's crucial. So we needed confirmation by tomorrow. In the report, June 26th, I assume that's 2024. So that always, the sort of last minute reactive things always makes me squirrely, and I think some other counselors. However, if I'm understanding correctly, this is basically a construct of the federal government on their timing and releasing information. So you're trying to do the best you can and been forced into this, some would arguably say, an unreasonable timeline. So please tolerate my pushing, because it's the kind of thing that really bothers taxpayers. So the questions I have is, is this another bureaucracy? But this is an opportunity for our community. And Mayor Souls and Council, I've known many, and I think others as well, people trying to get their permanent residency living here and unable to do that. I have specific examples of people waiting months and months, well over half a year with a job waiting for them because of the problems associated. So this is a real thing. And if this 1.5 people can actually help them navigate it, but it's a nightmare. It has been a nightmare for the individual. That's why I'm asking that question. And the resources, unfortunately, they're very susceptible to scams, bureaucratic, federal bureaucratic, whatever, just unhelpfulness, put it that way. And so if these people can actually help, and it's a complex problem, because these staff people, will they actually be able to pull them through? And the federal government has created some monsters with the immigration policies over the last few years, but is considering reducing the number. So the reason why I'm going on is because this is information I think is relevant to us and for us to understand on making a decision. With that, even though I really have a disdain for the last minute kind of process, I'm supportive of this. Thank you for tolerating me.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. This did come to CSRD, and we did in principle support this as well. Kat, what we're looking for now for the chamber is a motion to support this. And so I'm going to get to you, Councillor Orlando. A motion to support this, and then funding has been secured for that 20,000 through the
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Orlando.
Your worship, I'm ready to bring the motion forward. Yeah. So I move that a letter of support be provided to the Revelstoke Chamber of Commerce respecting the East Kootenay Immigration Pilot Program, and that a formal request be submitted to the Columbia Shuswap Regional District Board for up to $20,000 in economic opportunity funds, be committed annually for 5 years.
Okay. Second for the motion, Councillor Palmer. Any further discussion, Councillor Orlando? You want to speak to this?
Your worship, I'd like to speak in favor of this. I will be supporting this resolution. First of all and foremost, I want to thank Caroline and Kat for their hard work on this one. Caroline and I first sort of got into conversation about this back in April. One thing I really want to note is that the deadline is on a federal government announcement. So we've been trying to find information for months now. And then all of a sudden it was re-announced. And so we're moving real quick to try to find a home for this. Just a real great initiative. Caroline's been lobbying for support, has received a lot of support, has linked up with the East Kootenay group. We were at a risk if we don't support this of being the only, potentially, if the others are all of the other applicants are successful, the only town in southern BC who doesn't have access to this key program. The original pilot program, just to take a look at the RNIP, RCIP distinction, the RNIP was the first pilot program. This is the second pilot program. with a slightly different name and different scope. There were 11 initial programs in the first one. I believe the maximum is 15 for the second intake. So there's no guarantees here that we'll be successful. So if any of our federal partners are listening, I'll add to the dialogue and say thank you very much for your consideration of this regional partnership with East Community Kootenays. For me to speak directly, this provides a pathway to PR for residents, as was seen in the West Kootenay program, and they've produced a great YouTube video explaining it, and the West Kootenay group, and which that residents can review. And as is contained in the report before us, about 90%, I believe it was slightly less than that. This report says 90%, I thought it was 80, I'm wrong, are existing residents who are finding a new locally controlled pathway to permanent residency. These are workers, these are people, employees who live in the community already, who now have a pathway to PR. If they do not have that pathway to PR, then they could potentially relocate out of the community. There's provincial pathways, there's the straight federal criteria pathway, but this is a locally controlled pathway. So this gives us access to work directly with existing stakeholders to provide them PR. As was referenced in previous reporting, as Councillor Cherry was mentioning, this is often for employers a much less costly way to go through this. Caroline has done an amazing job on education in the short term. This is really, I think, in the interest of employers in this community to have this program in place. Unfortunately, just the scramble in like a couple of weeks to get it done is beyond our control, nothing that we can do, and is not necessarily even the Chamber of Commerce's responsibility. So just tremendous initiative on their part to get this organized with the other groups. One thing I want to point out is that although it hasn't been an emphasis of economic development in Revelstoke in the past 10 years or so, in the past, there has been fairly extensive work to develop these pathways for Revelstoke, including migration pathways to help with our workforce issue. I was on Indeed this week, taking a look at how many listings are available, and it's a lot. We definitely need to find skilled workers for our community and maintain our permanent residency here. Caroline's got lots of support quickly, lots of letters of support. We've been communicating off and on an almost daily basis for the past few weeks. Just tremendous job there. And I do recommend to council to, I know this, we're on a tight deadline here, but I do recommend requesting a package that Caroline has distributed to lots of businesses in town that explains the program in more depth. Really, the reason it's here today as a late item, and again, apologies on behalf of everyone, is that this deadline was July 2nd. So, basically end of the week, and that's why we're looking at it in this perspective. So great job, and I encourage everyone to support.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Rousseau.
Thank you, Marshals. Yeah, just a question through. You'd mentioned 15 people that it supports. Is that annually? Is that over the 5-year program? And is that shared in between the communities that we're collaborating with?
The chair. She's talking to you. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, I think that was a miscommunication on my part. There will be in this intake, there will be 15 programs accepted. Previously on the first pilot program, there were 11 who were successful. So it's going to be a tight application process, no guarantees. If you look at stats from the West Kootenay program, which will be similar in size and scope of ours, 650 jobs were filled and 1,196 community recommendations for permanent residency were forwarded during that period. So that ability to provide permanent residency through a locally administered program is really really what is important here, because it allows us for decision making and some prioritization on what we need to fill the skilled positions in our community and open positions in our community to do what's right for us. So this is the federal government providing local organizations and local employers the ability to retain them. And the key thing here is for a lot of newcomers to the community, migrants to the community, that pathway to PR is key here. The work that they're currently doing is often a pathway to a permanent stay in Canada. If the alternate to that is not having this, is a reduction in the amount of retention we're going to be able to have for employers, more churn in the community, turnover in the community, as opposed to finding people home and here in our community and allowing them to stay.
Follow up, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Souls. When it comes to setting the priorities for the 7 communities, is that just specific to one industry, or are we able to encompass more than one industry in our priorities?
Through the chair, that yes, we can completely encompass more industries. That's how RNIP worked, a Rural Northern Immigration Program. And it just did not allow for priority employees that resort municipalities need, like those fast food workers or cooks and things like that. And so aligning ourselves with the East Kootenays and the 4 resort municipalities in there, we feel that we're going to understand a little bit more what our needs are in regards to being a resort municipality.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, no, this program sounds great, and it sounds like it will be a process that instead of going through the LMIA for the businesses, that they'd be able to post locally and find these residents that are already here in town and give them a pathway to PR instead of having to go through the owner's process of getting someone from out of the country.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes, just a quick question on the 15 through Councillor Lando, the 15, that's across Canada?
Sorry.
I might feel like I'm on thin ice here. Is it BC?
BC. Okay, it doesn't matter. Just curious how big the competition is. It's across Canada, it'd be almost nothing. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you both for your work.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on to Communications Multi-Purpose Facility Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Cherry, you want to weigh in?
I actually just want to do a brief update here. Councillor, Lucio and I actually didn't get an email invite to this meeting, didn't attend, so we're hoping Ms. Donata could brief us on what happened. Sorry, Donata.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yes, apologies for that. There was an administrative error in the membership list, which the counselors weren't noticed on the membership list. We had a new clerk send out the minutes, so I did double check, and they inadvertently got missed from the email distribution list, so they were not present at the meeting.
Blow boys on the
It
phone?
was not an intentional, it was a mistake, human error.
Happens.
Apologies, it won't happen again. The membership list has been updated with their email contact information, so moving forward, they will be there.
Great, thank you.
In
Any
the
other
interim, could you
comments
give
or
us a-
questions regarding the minutes? Councillor London?
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm happy to provide a quick update to council as I did attend the meeting. It was on the city website for meeting agenda. Great session. This is the first one. The next one's not going to be until September. As you can see from the report, it lists the members in attendance. And I would describe it as sort of a high-level visioning exercise with a lot of questions distributed to different tables, groups of different representatives to talk about what they are visioning for the facility. A good turnout from community volunteers, and thanks to all of them for coming out to this meeting to share their concerns. And I would say, yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very interesting exercise, but very, very, very high level. The next meeting is scheduled for September, and at that time, we will take the next steps on this process. So thanks everyone for showing up.
All right, any other comments regarding the minutes? Seeing none, Ms. Delassalle, do we have any questions from the press?
We have no questions from the press, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. All right, council, I'd like to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1A and K of the community charter. Someone want to make the motion for me, please? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a 10-minute break and be back in camera. Thank you.